Yo, Natsu here. Back for the first time in way too long, honestly. I'm dead tired, and tomorrow I'm going to see family, which I really don't fucking want. But I did promise on Discord that I would. Well, and if I remember correctly, I did a community post saying that I would do this one. So I'm going to start trying to do it either once every week or every 2 weeks. I know I said that the other times as well, but the other times, even the other recorders I tried on my old phone did nothing. This is a new phone. If it works, I'm gonna try to do this often because it does help me unstress a lot to do these videos. So I'm gonna try to do them. Anyway, welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Had a Linked Soul. What is a linked soul, you might ask? Well, the ones I'm using specifically for this one are a type of soul that are linked between between two people or more. Deku will have only one person linked to him. How do they work? Let's take two people from another anime. Let's say, Asta and Natsu Dragon. Both of them aren't in the same universe, but a linked soul could actually make both of them still be connected to each other. Because a linked soul can either link two people who are in the same world, the same universe, or even in completely different dimensions, even across time. Basically, you could have. Let's take an example of someone has powers in one dimension at a specific time, and in the other dimension, 20 years later, another person also has powers. Those two people could be connected. In a single world, two people cannot be connected at different times. That would not work. But in different animes or dimension, even if both dimensions go at the exact same speed, they could be connected at two different times. The only downside is if those dimensions get connected, the link soul does get broken. But they do keep the powers. Anyways, there are very few ways to break a linked soul. Like, killing one of them will instantly break the connection, the other one will keep his powers, even the powers gained through the linked soul, and won't be affected. Another way is to literally, instead of trying to destroy a soul, destroy the link itself by breaking the connection between them. That will also break it. So, for the way the powers work, let's say through training physically. Any amount of capacity one of them gets, the other one will get 50% of it instantly. So let's say one trains for a marathon to run faster and have a lot of stamina. The other one will gain about 50% of those abilities. The muscles will grow and form for those as well. Let's say then that the other one is training to be an extreme bodybuilder. He will raise his stamina and physical capacities a lot more, which would then send 50% of those to be copied and given to the other one. Meaning that both of them would be extremely strong and fast, but each of them would only have 50% of what the other one did as training. Now, if we look at powers, let's go back to how I explained with Asta and Natsu. Asta would get magic. To be specific, he would mostly get Dragon Slayer magic as abilities. But because of his body unable to use actual magic, it would translate those abilities into anti-magic abilities that use still the abilities of a Dragon Slayer. So instead of consuming magic to create the flames, it would create them out of anti-magic and still work the exact same, which would be extremely dangerous in Black Clover. In contrast, what Natsu would gain is abilities for anti-magic as well as the ability to summon a book as well as the exact same type of sword that Asta does. Though their powers would be 50% what Asta has, and Natsu would probably only be able to use anti-magic or magic at once, basically not being able to push both of them out at once. So it's either the swords or his Dragon Slayer's abilities. Now, if we take another example, let's say Natsu and Gray, both of them would simply get an increase in actual magic every time they train, with 50% of what the other one gained on top of them. And both of them would both have Dragon Slayer magic and Demon Slayer magic, meaning both of them would be able to use fire and ice, just with the same 50%, only that they gain from the other one's training. Unless they specifically train their own to also try to exceed that, the one that the other one is using. Now, Deku's soul will be linked with Bakugo, which they won't know until later, and people will just think that for some fucking reason, Bakugo and Deku both have the exact same quirk. Which means Deku and Bakugo both train Explosion and mutually grow much stronger. They'll obviously also be friends, since both of them will have the same quirk. But there will be a DNA check to see if no weird thing happened. Though at first they thought that instead of Deku making explosion, he was just shooting fire out of his hands. But they quickly saw it was the same exact quirk. This will also translate because they will get One for All, which, yes, will be linked. And oh god, I had to do a lot of thinking for how that one would work. So, yeah. Oh, also, no, the souls won't be linked from the start. Deku will actually get the ability to use explosion at around 8, so Bakugo will be a douchebag to Deku for a while until one day Deku basically starts to use explosions at about half of Katsuku's capacity. That's when they check for, oh yeah, are they related or something? And Bakugo will start to be a lot more approachable when Deku tries to talk. And they will be friends from earlier on, that way later in the series, when Bakugo starts to be amicable. But still. So yes, Bakugo will still be a fucking douchebag to Deku in some moments. The reason their souls were linked comes from one of the ways, well, one of the multiple ways souls can be linked. Though theirs was kind of an accident, let's just say. Because the way their soul was linked was basically some gods are able to, when souls are created, if two souls are created at once from either too much power, stuff like that, those souls have a large ability to be linked in different lives. Dekus and bakugos were created very closely, but weren't directly linked, and when it happened was when they were younger. Basically, one of them fell on the other, and finally it kind of clicked, and they just linked to each other. So, let's start at about where Deku is able to start using explosion. The day before, Deku and Bakugo were at school, basically messing around, and Bakugo bullying Deku, like usual, until someone, by accident, pushed Deku straight into Bakugo, which Bakugo not long after basically punched Deku away, which was about the moment where it clicked. That contact and both of their emotions being fear and anger, fear for Deku, obviously. Fuck, Bakugo would never be afraid of Deku at that time. Basically, when the souls were linked, Deku did start to feel a bit of heat, basically, in his body. Though since the power needed to transfer first, he didn't have the ability of explosion until the next morning, when he was eating breakfast and basically just thought back to it, and it did make him angry. He basically closed his hand, and when he did that, a small puff of smoke, as well as a bit of pressure, basically exploded from his hand. His mom got surprised. Deku got surprised. Deku then tried to remake what he did, and saw little pops happen. In his mind, it didn't click yet what that was, though very fast he thought, I have a quirk. The pops simply looked like small fires, which made both of them think at first of, oh, he can make fire out of his hands. He went to school later afterward and basically told people he finally got his quirk and showed it off. Which nearly everyone basically just thought, wait, that looked like Bakugo's quirk, but weaker. Which pissed off Bakugo when he heard that. And every time he saw Deku using it, it pissed him off because it looked like he's copied his quirk. Thinking it was a copy quirk and telling Deku to copy the quirk of someone else instead of his, because he didn't want a loser to have his quirk. People thought it might be that, and basically a few people were like, try to copy mine, I want to see what it would look like. Which, of course, nobody's quirk were copied from doing it. So Deku was still only using Bakugo's quirk. Deku started to train that because he thought, if I have that, I can be a hero. I can be like All Might. Which Bakugo didn't like and started to train it just to kind of prove that, oh, you think you can be better than me? No, I'll be the better one. And so both of them started to train the quirk. Like, not instantly. For a few days, Deku was just testing out the quirk, testing out if he was actually copying a quirk, and stuff like that. And, of course, the part about checking for DNA, was partially a joke, but they did check if they had related ancestor a bit further. Well, Inko and Mitsuri did. Because they knew nobody cheated. So they just checked if, like, something could have been that. Which, no. So they just thought they had very similar quirk for a while. Until they started training. Basically, Bakugo only bullied Deku now to show off, basically. Because his quirk was growing pretty fast, now that he was actually training it. But Deku's was also growing fast. Like, Bakugo knows he didn't fully train correctly before. Like, he was using it often, but he wasn't, like, trying to blow up buildings and stuff. But Deku was keeping up with him from the point where he started. And in fact, it seems like he was growing a bit faster. Though that was mostly because Deku was basically constantly thinking of other ways to train quirk. Basically, he already has some notebooks for heroes and stuff, so he basically used that to try and think of other ways to use the explosions. By the time they were 10, their quirks were already able to make pretty good explosions. And Bakugo and Deku started to fight more. Let's just say, nearly always being Bakugo who started it, though Deku did start to take a bit more of the annoying trait of being angry, and was most of the time ready to brawl with Bakugo. Which made both of them start to also train physically to keep up with the other one. Which basically means both of them have a 1.5 times boost to their training because they basically train way too close to how the other does it. Both do think of different ways of fighting using the explosions, though. So that's a bit of a difference. But creating a move and actually creating a new power or skill is kind of different. Example, if Bakugo starts to fly using his quirk, that's him thinking of a way to use explosions to fly by pushing himself forwards. That won't instantly pop up in Deku's mind as a way of using it. Let's go back to the example of Asta and Natsu. Natsu has specific moves that are magic circles for Dragon Slayer attacks, but he can create new things by thinking up new ones and then creating those circles. Asta would get the base things that are for all Dragon Slayers, like the breath attack, putting his element around himself or around certain body parts. But if Natsu trains himself to use it more around, let's say, a need to give hits, Asta won't think of doing that instantly. It won't be a spell that is created, since the only thing it does is just put fire around there. Since Dragon Slayer magic is literally just the same spell used in different spots, so yeah. Except for very specific things, but anyways, like, oh yeah, fire on the hand, it's just fire around that part of the body. You got that. So, same thing for Bakugo and Deku. Both of them training to fight in a specific way, the other one won't instantly be able to fight in that way as well. It's just that skills, magic, whatever, are transferred. Not actual understanding and such. It's like someone trains with the sword. You'll understand how to fight with the sword, but you won't be able to replicate all of them instantly. Let's take Zoro, for example. If your soul is linked to Zoro, you won't instantly be able to use, let's say, um, Onigiri or I was about to say King Kong gun. That's Luffy's attack. Sorry. But yeah, basically, you get the point. Even if Zoro creates Onigiri, that's just an extension of his sword skill. The other person will get Zoro's sword skill, or at least 50% of being capable of using those sword skill and the strength that comes with it, but they won't instantly know how to do onigiri since that's something Zoro created himself and just it's the movement itself. Of course, 50% of a sword skill is kind of hard to understand, but look, I'm not the one who created this. So, it's kind of hard to try and explain what the creator was thinking when those are basically the explanation, though without specifically using those characters. Anyways, by the time that all Deku should meet All Might, Bakugo and Deku became more rivals than enemies, let's just say. Both of them are about the same in terms of power at that point, with Bakugo still being better in terms of explosives, but Deku having trained more his physical body to keep up at first, since he had understood that, oh yeah, Bakugo's already forward with the quirk, so let's start doing this instead. Train my physical abilities. So, Bakugo never blow up Deku's notebook in this one. Since, yeah, they're rivals, but he won't do that to his rival. They have a good fight now. You could call them friends almost. Basically more like how Vegeta and Goku acts. Vegeta still hates Goku a lot, but he won't just kill him for no reason. You get it? They're gonna train together and such, but yeah. Frenemies is a good word for it, though. So, when Deku leaves for his home, and that the sludge villain attacks him, let's just say that the sludge villain attacks Deku. Deku tries to blow everything up to save himself, and All Might comes to save the day. Because if Bakugo, well, he is stronger than Canon Bakugo at that point, obviously. Both of them are training and increasing it a lot already, so they're pretty much strong. Since they've been training since the age of 8, I would actually put them at the level of around, I want to say, like the middle of the forest training arc. Which, by the training arc, they're gonna be over that amount before they even start the training. But still, they trained a lot, just not that hard yet. So, All Might saves Deku, who did not pass out in this one. In fact, Deku helps All Might put the villain in the bottles. Deku asks for the autographs. All Might does give it to him. And All Might starts to leave. Which Deku simply did like in canon and grabbed on because he wanted to ask if he could be a hero with the quirk he has. Since it is a dangerous quirk, he literally blew up a part of the bridge while trying to get out of the sludge villain grasp. So, All Might landed on a building. Deku asked if with an explosion quirk like he has, he can be a hero, and All Might tells him that yes, he could. But then Deku keeps going, saying how until he was 8 years old, he never had a quirk. It just popped up one day, the same as the one of his friend, and they started to train, and fight again. And most of the time now, they have to control it a lot because they can harm people with it. And he's really not sure. All Might by this point puffs out, scaring Deku a lot, asking him if he's really All Might. And All Might explains his injury, asking Deku to keep it a secret though. Then they realize that, oh no, the sludge villain escaped. All Might puffs back up to go and look for it, until he arrives at the scene, once again unable to transform because, yeah, he's out of steam. Bakugo was once again the one being attacked, but Deku, seeing the explosion, instantly went towards that way this time because he knows those explosions better than anyone. Well, other than one person. When he arrived, he saw Bakugo, who the sludge villain was trying to take over, talking about how he has a similar quirk to the other one he tried to kill. Everyone was just standing there, unable to do anything. This time, not just because the sludge villain was out of their reach in terms of quirk compatibility, but also because Bakugo's explosion were actually doing a lot of damage around. All Might wasn't able to do anything. The heroes knew they couldn't do shit. People were giving hope. And then Deku just started to run. All Might was surprised at first, until suddenly one of the explosions from Bakugo started to go towards Deku, who pushed his hand out and basically just sent another one, protecting himself, though making more damage to the area, and continuing to go forward towards Bakugo. Bakugo saw Deku and completely stopped using his quirk, understanding that if he kept blowing shit up, Deku would have to do the same. Remember, they don't like each other, but they're still friends in this one. The sludge villain tried to attack. Deku, being much more physically fit, moving around, well, everything that the sludge villain could try to do, which was not a lot, and pushed his hand inside the sludge villain, making sure to not touch Bakugo directly, and then started to make explosions. Not massive ones, but big enough to actually push away the sludge villain, making movement. The sludge villain tried to attack Deku from way up close, which this time was Bakugo who was creating explosions from having his limbs a lot less held back. And basically both of them were able to push away the sludge villain. That's when All Might, just like in the anime and manga, basically got his fighting spirits going and basically blew up the sludge villain again. basically saying that those two were pretty reckless. This time, when the heroes went to, well, in the anime, they lectured Deku because it was dangerous. He did again, well, they did again, but this time they also congratulated him because both him and Bakugo were able to get out of that nearly unscathed. And in fact, Deku was doing a pretty good job removing the sludge villain until All Might arrived. Bakugo and Deku basically punched each other before going separate ways, which was more because Bakugo was a bit pissed that Deku had to come save him, but still said thank you. Deku just hit back because, yeah. While walking away, All Might was waiting in Deku's path and basically told him that this is why Deku would be a great hero. Greatest heroes aren't the strongest one, or the one with the best quirk. It's the ones that move first. And Deku did not even think. He just went at it and saved Bakugo. He told Deku that he would help him train, which Deku asked if Bakugo could be trained with him, because he doesn't want their rivalry to just stop. All Might had to think about it, but did accept in the end. And so both of them went to train with All Might. First time Bakugo saw All Might in his lesser form, Deku presented him as someone who would help them train without saying it was All Might. All Might also kept that a secret for a while, until at one point they just kind of decided to tell Bakugo. Since they had 10 months, and after 5 months, well, most of the training All Might was just making them do, but both of their bodies already pretty fucking far along. Both of them were already trained since after both of them had the same quirk, they just kind of started trained to keep ahead of the other. Since both of them trained extremely fast, and that by this point they were stronger than what Bakugo was at the end of the forest training arc in terms of his quirk abilities, since they were trained by All Might to use both their physical abilities and their quirks, All Might decided to take Deku to the side and tell him about One for All. He told him that he was sorry that his rivalry with Bakugo might stop now, but that he wanted him to have the quirk, since Deku showed that he would be a great successor. The greatest successor, in fact. Now you might say, okay, but the quirk factor makes it so that Deku and Bakugo would probably die from the damage of, having too much in their glass. But because of how a linked soul works, that would actually be completely negated. Deku doesn't have Bakugo's quirk factor, he just has the power itself. It's not something that's in him from the start. Yes, if the soul link would be broken, Deku would still keep that, but it's not a quirk factor inside of him. Just like once he gets One for All, Bakugo won't have the quirk factor for One for All, which won't interfere with his quirk factor. He'll just have the power that comes with it. He will also have the soul place, where he could talk with the other users, which he would also be able to speak with Deku from there, but that's because the power itself allows that to happen. Which, yes, would mean that if Bakugo tried to give his one for all away, I don't think it would work. Since what is passed off is the quirk factor, basically meaning Bakugo could keep the quirk, Deku would giving it away, and then Bakugo, still training it, would allow Deku to get it back. But still, basically, Deku was practically forced to accept it, and thought to himself that he would allow Bakugo to train more. In fact, asked All Might if it was okay to tell Bakugo, which he reluctantly agreed because that was the thing Deku asked for in exchange for actually getting the quirk. Which, not long after that, was actually the time they discovered that, oh, Deku didn't copy Bakugo's quirk. It was something else. Because, remember, they're only about, well, actually, did I say it? They're about only 5 months along. They still have 5 months before going to UA. So, Bakugo was told about the quirk. He was pissed at Deku for actually accepting it, with All Might explaining that it's more that he's forcing it on Deku than any other thing. Until Bakugo saw that Deku had to eat a hair, which he was then bursting out laughing, saying that, well, he doesn't want it anymore, and he can leave Deku to get all of it if he wants. Deku ate the hair, and only the next day did they start training for that. Which, first day, Bakugo didn't really feel any of it, because he didn't try to do it, really. Deku blew up his arm. Bakugo bursted out laughing. All Might called in a favor from Recovery Girl to come and heal him, and basically had her on speed dial for if anything happened. Bakugo just said, "Really, dude, it was just a punch." Pulled back his arm, stressed his arm, didn't think about it, and when he punched, not as badly as Deku, but it was injured. Which Deku bursted out laughing while still having his arm broken, while Recovery Girl was already coming. All Might was in shock, because Bakugo and Deku just used the exact same thing, but he realized that Bakugo's was weaker. Much, much weaker. Only about half the amount of power was behind that punch than what Deku had. I'm going to end it here for today. I hope you liked it. I did it very long and my throat is in pain. So, if you have any question, ask them in the comment section. Don't ask me where it came from. It's a friend of mine on Discord, well, who was on Discord, who basically explained it to me with each of his own eccentricities. So I can explain it better in the description if you ask me for. Sorry, in the comment section if you ask me for. But it's still only going to be what he explained. Anyway, subscribe if you want to. Good luck. Natsu, out.